Hi class, this is Mr. Tan, and we are doing what subject, please? Good. Understanding and leading change. What question are we on? P4. Can someone read out the question, please?
Explain different barriers for change and determine how they influence leadership decision making in a given organization context.
Good. So the question says explain. Key word here. Explain means to do what?
To give examples.
Go into more detail. Which means no bullet points. It means paragraph format only. Explain different barriers of change and determine how they influence leadership decision making in a given organizational context. So what is the first thing that we need to do when we're looking at this question? What is the first we need to be talking about, do you think?
Talk about the given organizational context.
Good. So the first thing we need to be talking about is the given organizational context. And I know we discussed this already, but what is the given organizational context that we're looking at?
The integration of brokers and Londis into Tesco.
Good, excellent. So we know that in 2015, Tesco's made a pre-tax loss, good, of how much? 6.4 billion. Just videoing. So 6.4 billion, first time in their history. And subsequently, Tesco's actually had to make changes. And so what changes did they decide to make? Good. They decided to buy Booker's, which had access to over 30,000 independent shops. With Booker's, they came along Londis and Budgens. Okay. So what did Londis and Budgens allow Tesco's to have or do? Put their products. Good. Put their products inside Budgens and Londis to compete against who? Aldi and Lidl. So now you're going to have Tesco's products going into Booker's, Tesco's products going into Budgens, and Tesco's products going into Londis. Which is a good thing because now they can have these products at a probably cheaper price with a different brand, not Tesco's brand, a different brand, but now competing against Londis and Lidl. So you need to explain that situation first. Okay? Don't go into too much detail. We're looking for about 7 lines, 10 words per line, about 70 words. Okay? The next thing we need to do is what when we're answering this question?
Leadership styles.
Good. Now we want to talk about generally some of the different types of leadership styles. And here you want to, I think, come into and talk about, 5 lines on different leadership styles, and then lead into 5 lines on path goal theory. So you want to talk 5 lines in terms of, autocratic leadership style, democratic leadership style, participative leadership style, laissez-faire leadership style, and talk about also transactional leadership style and transformational leadership style. Okay, not too much, not a great deal, because you've done this before in many other courses and subjects. And then lead into briefly what is path goal theory. Path goal theory, because leadership decision making can be linked to path goal theory in terms of different leadership decisions taken depending upon the theory. So talk about path goal theory in terms of the structure that needs to be broken down first, the task, how first the task is clearly defined, the boundaries, the scope, what needs to be done. And then looking at the people. The appropriate people, excellent, to work in terms of their preferences and what type of leadership style they would like. And then the leadership style. So we talked about path goal theory, briefly, 5 lines. You don't want huge amounts in it. And then what's the next thing that we need to talk about? The barriers, okay. So now we need to talk about in relation to what? Budgens, Booker's and Londis. Good. So now when you're talking about the barriers of change, now you need to mention these in relation to the given organizational context, which is Tesco's and Budgens. Okay. So now give me the first barrier of change.
Resistance to change.
Resistance to change. Someone explain that to me.
Is the fear for the unknown.
Yeah, it's the fear of the loss is what you're going to lose. I mean,
nature that we don't change because we think that we
yes.
may lose. Yeah.
Yes, so we're talking about Londis now, and Booker's and Budgens, and people working there, they're going to be fearful of losing their jobs.
Yeah.
They're going to be fearful, especially the senior managers and higher managers, they're going to be fearful of losing their kind of like promotions, but also their position in their section. Everything that they built up over X number of years, and fearful of doing things in a different way. People are fearful of change. All people are fearful of change. And as you get older, you will find the older you get, people are fearful of change. The younger you are, is the more adaptable you are.
You're more adventurous.
You're more adventurous. Yeah. So generally, people are fearful of change because they will lose out. They can lose out politically inside the company, and with bookers, staff integrating into Tesco's, they will lose out. So that will be a barrier for change. And what's the impact of a barrier of change? What's the impact?
It can be a failure.
It could be a failure. It could demotivate people. The emotional link is that people will be demotivated to actually carry out a task. So they're working very inefficiently and ineffectively. Therefore, it could stop something from happening. What's the second barrier of change? The fear of the unknown. Yes, the fear of not knowing what is going to be the outcome. What is going to happen? What's going to happen? Is my job still going to be there?
Yeah, what is the job pattern? What is
Yes,
the time
and is it going to change in terms of my working hours, my working days, my working pattern? Are my lunch breaks going to change? Are my tea breaks going to change? What exactly more am I going to have to do in terms of bookers and Tesco's coming in, and also in terms of Tesco's staff going in to sort this integration out? What are they going to have to do? Okay, again. What are they going to have to learn? What knowledge and what skills do they need? Okay, what's the next barrier of change? Integration. What do we mean by integration?
All the changing regarding management, how
You need to change the way how it's tested.
Yes, so we're changing how things are done in Booker's, Londis and Budgeons and making them consistent with the Tesco's way of doing things. That means a whole deal of change because you can't get rid of all the employees in Booker's, Budgeons and Londis. You still need the people there who knows all the expertise in terms of their systems and how things are and where everything is. You can't get rid of everyone and replace them, so you have to work with those people. So how can you get the successful integration of those people from those companies into Tesco's, doing things the way Tesco's wants it to be done? Yes, but also it's leading, it's motivating, it's coaching, but also it's changing the culture. The culture of the way of doing things in Budgeons, Londis and it's going to be different from Tesco's. So it's the integration of that culture and the way things are done. And changing people's mindsets is sometimes difficult. But again, that leadership style is going to be needed for that to be done. And the fourth barrier of change? Complexity.
Yeah, which is again
Yes.
the IT system mainly.
Yes.
Mainly IT system.
How complex, how much of an IT do you need to integrate? Booker's IT systems may not be consistent with Tesco's IT systems. So you're going to need to revamp everything. Their software, their barcoding, their warehousing, their stock rooms, their complete IT system. It's a complete big business. You're talking about £1 billion businesses, £1 billion turnovers. So you're talking about huge companies and systems that now have to be changed. Is that going to be an easy thing? No. It's going to be extremely complex. And it doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to get it right. But if you don't get it right, you're doomed for failure and you're going to cost you a lot more money. So how easy is it to integrate the IT systems, the warehousing, the stock rooms, how easy to the barcoding, the advertising, the promotions, the customer loyalty schemes? How easy is it to integrate all of this into the Tesco's database, the IT systems?
They don't do overnight, and they do
No.
gradually, isn't it? Because
Yes.
ideally they're supposed to shut it down and do it. It would be easier, but no, they can't.
No,
do
they
it.
can't.
They have to do
They
it
can't shut
gradually.
everything down. Exactly.
They have to gradually
It's-
and make sure
yes.
it does less disruption.
Yes, and also, good, less disruption, but also, running Booker's, Londis and Budgeons at the same time and then slowly integrating it,
Yeah,
but doing it as fast as they can.
that's right. Otherwise it'll be lots of time.
Okay, good. So now we've explained the situational context. We've explained leadership briefly, in terms of leadership styles, path goal theory briefly, and now we've looked at the barriers of change. What's the final thing we need to do?
We'll go back to again.
To what?
To the theory.
Path goal theory, good. And we need to say, how does this affect the leadership change? Now, well, obviously, or leadership decision making, the question says. So it affects leadership decision making in terms of determining what leadership style should be adopted. Using path goal theory, we're saying breaking down the task, identifying the scope, the boundaries, what the tasks need to be done for Londis, for bookers, for budgeons, all the IT systems, all the stock, all the culture, all the integration. It's complex. And then saying to ourselves, what style are we going to take? Is it going to be delegating, participative, supportive, or directive? What do you think?
Directive.
It's going to be directive. It's going to be directive because the leader has to clarify the path, clarify the goal, and making sure that everything is done and checking everything is done on an ongoing basis to deadline and timescales. But also, the leadership style needs to be transformational as well. In addition to this, it needs to be transformational. It needs to be inspiring. It needs to be with a vision, a mission, a determination to give people on both Booker's, Londis, and Budgeons, and also Tesco's, the need for that vision to see that it's going to benefit both companies. So as well as being directive, I would add to that, it needs to also be transformational.
Phase is the directive.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's when we add
Good.
to the transparency as well.
Yes. Okay, have we answered the question?
Yeah.
Is everyone happy with that?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you today from Mr. Ten.
All right.
Thank you.